Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live with Virginia NORML. I'm J.M. Padini, the Development Director of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws and the Executive Director of your favorite chapter, Virginia NORML. Hey friends, it's Friday, May 5th, 2023. So you know what that means. It's time for us to talk all things cannabis in the Commonwealth. And hey, answer your burning questions live. Hello. Hello, Sherry. Good to see you, friend. Happy 5th of May to you as well. Hey, Ellie. Good to see you. Good to see you. Happy Friday, friend. Hey, everyone. Wherever you're watching, take a quick second to hit that like, follow, or subscribe button wherever you are so you never miss when NORML goes live. And hey, also take a quick sec and drop a note in the comments right now. Let us know where you're watching from and get your questions ready. Happy Friday, Dwayne. Hey, Folly. Hey, Fred, you're not late. I am. Just a little bit. Cassidy and I had some stuff to talk about. Hey, Mike in SoCal. Awesome. Oh, Joel, in with the big questions right off the bat. Oh, all right. Hey, Dwayne in Fauquier County. I'd be careful when you say that one. Hey, Joel, thanks for your question. Joel wants to know, why do the feds want to keep marijuana Schedule 1? How hard is it to get the legislation changed? Well, Joel, we've been working here at NORML since 1973. So that's over 1970. So that's over half a century. We've been working for over half a century to get the US government to remove marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act. So it's not easy, but it is possible, and it's an act of Congress that can make this happen. The president is not going to end the war on cannabis consumers through executive order. We get that question a lot. It is ultimately incumbent upon Congress to pass legislation that removes marijuana from the Federal Controlled Substances Act and allows states to continue setting their own policies, but without threat of federal interference. It's really difficult, though, to do that when you have a divided legislature, and that's what we have now. So make sure you're thinking about that next time you head to the ballot box. Now, the good news is, Joel, we do have a president who is supportive of ending the war on marijuana. He's made very clear statements on such, but still, it's really difficult with the divided government that we have right now at the federal level. Ellie, I'm so glad that you love this show. Hey, Charlie, good to see you. The sun is shining. Look at that. That's a nice change. Hey, Craig, good to see you. Craig's got a great question. If it's truly medicine in Virginia, then why can't the insurance companies pay for it like other medicine? Well, they could, but they won't. And they won't because it is a Schedule 1 substance at the federal level. That's what most entities use as an excuse, really, for anything related to marijuana. There we are. Hey, Cassidy, thanks for dropping that action alert in there. If you all haven't seen this, in the comments, there is an action alert. Tell Congress to prioritize cannabis policy reform in 2023. Not right now, but maybe in a second, or like if you can open 2 windows, then go ahead. But send a message to your members. Let them know that this is a voting issue for you. Hey, Dwayne, do we have a podcast? I mean, we do. This is kind of it. It's just not on your traditional podcast platforms. But sure, tell me more. Tell me more what you're thinking about. I think we're good in Minnesota now, Folly. I think we're good. Ultimately, these two bills, they had different measures in the House and the Senate, but the bills have to be reconciled in the conference committee before they can go to the governor for approval. Of course, Governor Walz is already on the record as being supportive of legalization, but those were very close votes. You're right. Hey, Wade, good to see you. Joel wants to know what percent of THC does Virginia allow for sales as medical cannabis and why? This is a great question, Joel. And here's the thing. We don't use percentages in Virginia for cannabis because that's not how science works. I know some states do that, and that's kind of absurd because it doesn't really translate the same from plant material to a liquid to a solid edible type product. We use milligrams per serving, right? Just like you would see on a bottle of Tylenol. Got some generic Tylenol right here, some acetaminophen. You know what it's not listed in? Percent. It's listed in milligrams. Because that's what we do in America. Anyhow, to that point, to your original question, in Virginia, we use milligrams per serving. This doesn't really pertain to botanical cannabis. That's what we call flower in Virginia. It doesn't really pertain to that because you're not able to inhale that number of milligrams per serving or per dose anyhow. It's really germane to liquid like tinctures or edibles like a tablet or a gummy or something like that. But it's 10 milligrams per dose. Now, dose is the individual dispensed unit. So let's use some Tylenol as an example. Oops, I didn't mean to show Minnesota. Sorry there. So 1 dose, that means 1 tablet in Virginia. But your dosage, right, what you're going to take at once, is going to be 2 tablets every 4 to 6 hours. This is just an example. So dose means 1 individual dispensed unit, and that's 10 milligrams in the state of Virginia for medical cannabis. Most states have something similar. States that differentiate between medical and adult use typically have a higher allowance for medical products, but we do not yet regulate adult use cannabis in the Commonwealth. We're working on it. High boosted string of letters. Hey, Christopher, good to see you. Wade, I'm just seeing your comment now, and it seems like the right time. I know what you meant. Dwayne, I hope he hears me say that. I hope he hears me say anything. It'd be great if members of our administration watch this show, because then they know lots of things about cannabis policy. Evidence-based decisions matter. But you can't make those choices if you don't know, and that's a lot of what we have happening not only in Virginia but around the country. Hello, Christiane. Tylenol is nasty, throw it out. Well, listen, sometimes you need some Tylenol. What can I say? It's not good for a lot of things, but sometimes you need it. Especially when sometimes Advil gives you a rash. It is good to see everyone here. Christopher, I'm glad you're here. Oh, and you've got a great question. What's a good date to set for sales in Virginia? Oh, my friend, a good date was July 1 of 2021. But we didn't do that. We instead picked 2024 for some stupid reason. Great job, everyone. And that the opportunity for sales to begin on January 1, 2024 has come and gone because this administration doesn't want anything to do with regulating cannabis. Better yet, this administration doesn't want anything to do with controlling the sale of cannabis to adults 21 and older. I guess they like creating a safe haven for illicit operators and for organized crime. Not so tough on crime there, are you guys? Oh, wow, we have a lot of questions from the same people. Hey, Joel. Joel wants to know if the medical cannabis pharmacists are actually pharmacists. Yes, they're actually pharmacists. You can't call yourself a pharmacist in, I think, any state unless you're actually a licensed pharmacist. But yes, all of our pharmacists in Virginia's medical cannabis program are real pharmacists, and they have specific education in cannabis as well. Not to mention everyone that is behind the counter that is going to serve patients in Virginia. If they are not a pharmacist, they are a pharmacy technician. It is just like when you go to a regular pharmacy, because our program is currently regulated by the Board of Pharmacy. Now it's going to move over to the Cannabis Control Authority on January 1 of 2024, but it's still going to stay the same. It's still going to be pharmacy technicians and pharmacists. Hey, Joseph in Maryland. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hey, Liz. Good to see you here. Iowa? Is that IA is Iowa? This is like a quiz. Does Iowa, let's go with Iowa. Does Iowa have a normal chapter? No. And we'd love to, though. So if you and three of your friends would like to, or colleagues would like to start a chapter in Iowa, we'd love for you to do that. You can find out more at normal.org/chapters. There's a link there, some information. You can fill out the form, or you can just shoot us an email at chapters, plural, at normal.org. What can we do to help the progress in medical cannabis in Iowa? Look, the words right there. I could have just kept reading. As they offer very few options for products. Well, Liz, we actually talked a little bit about this last week, and if your state has nothing, or if your state has minimal and you want to move forward, this should be a signal. Well, of course you want to move forward, but this should be a signal to you as to where your legislature's at. If you don't have a lot, it's telling me that your elected officials are not yet emotionally comfortable with cannabis. Now, obviously, as a constituent, you probably have a better idea where your legislature's at. But building those relationships within the legislature, particularly with key members of the committees through which that type of bill would have to move, that's important. And, of course, key relationships with members who are in the majority, meaning the party that's in control of the chambers in your legislature. So thinking about a state that doesn't have a lot of access or limited products, this tells you, again, there's a lack of emotional comfort. We went through that here in Virginia. We did fine. And so this isn't popular, right? Everyone wants everything and they want it now, and letting the perfect be the enemy of the good gets you nowhere. So you have to be willing to just take those tiny steps until you can build up that emotional comfort that lets you take bigger steps, really. So let's say you have a program that only allows for extraction-based products. Like, let's say you have a program that only allows tinctures, but you'd like to add in other extraction-based products like edibles or vape cartridges. You have to think about the framing for that, the way you're going to describe it to legislators, and maybe don't come in guns a-blazing with like, we want everything. Maybe like, hey, this is great. We're really serving patients that need these types of products, but we have other patients whose needs aren't being met. And it would really, really be beneficial if we could add tablets or gelatin cubes. Gelatin cubes is a great way to explain what a gummy is. Gummy sets you up with like all sorts of ideas, has its own sort of connotation. So maybe, think about how the language you're using, tone it down, bring it back to, a more clinical style. Talk about gelatin cubes, talk about pressed tablets, talk about suppositories, nasal sprays, things like that. So you just gotta be willing to take those little tiny steps forward. That way your legislature is not feeling overwhelmed, they're ready to move forward, and they'll begin to trust you as a subject matter expert. So those are my tips. Hey, Charlie. Charlie wants to know if there's anything worthwhile coming out of the Cannabis Control Authority town halls. Yeah, it's constituent engagement. So this is giving the public time to meet face-to-face with members of the CCA and to understand what they're all about. Now, really, Charlie, what's happening is people are showing up to CCA town halls. They're super mad about whatever, and they want to complain, and they're there to talk about whatever they feel like. This, as you well know, Charlie, CCA does not make laws. They simply enact regulations based on what is legislated. So it's not really the place to go complain about whatever bill someone doesn't like. It is a good place to go and ask what their capabilities are, what their thoughts are on regulation. And I've also seen some narratives popping up online where people think the CCA is anti-cannabis or doesn't understand the value of medical cannabis or is demonizing it. I don't know where that's coming from. It's frankly absurd. The people at Cannabis Control Authority are smart. We are fortunate to have a really great group of folks over there that are doing some important work and really understand these policies. Now, if you don't like that the CCA is tasked by the legislature with putting out certain sets of information, again, that's the legislature that is mandating this work. Yes, there is an education campaign for preventing youth use that comes through the CCA. There is an education campaign on impaired driving that comes to the CCA, as well as some fact sheets that they were directed by the legislature to put forth, right, on breastfeeding. I know that happens to be one of them. And people were really mad about those, but again, our legislature, the people that y'all elected, decided this is the work they wanted CCA to do. So come here, ask those questions. We will explain to you how this all works, and then you can, we're here to peel back the layers of the onion to let you peek behind the curtain on how the sausage is made, as it were. It's all the food analogies for one sentence. Yes, the administration is harshing everyone's vibe, my dude. Hey, Robert. Robert wants to know if in Virginia the legislature rolled back the protections for odor in the car, sealing of records, etc. No. Fortunately, the Democratic-controlled Senate would not allow anything like that to occur, and again prevented that from happening in this last legislative session. Now, again, we saw multiple bills that attempted to repeal a provision enacted in 2020 that prevents law enforcement from stopping, searching, or seizing a person, place, or thing based solely on the odor of marijuana. And it's wild that people even have a problem with this, because that word solely matters, right? Like, it just means that you can't pull someone over and say, I pulled you over because I smell weed. Well, you didn't smell weed while they were driving down the highway. So first of all, you're lying. You got to have another reason to pull someone over. It can't be that you smelled weed. But why, but expect there'll be attempts again next year to repeal this, which is why it's so important that you go vote in November. Whew, and then record sealing, that's already happened. In Virginia, all misdemeanor marijuana possession records and all misdemeanor possession with intent to distribute marijuana records, those have all been sealed by Virginia State Police. Done, ski. Those are sealed. Now, there is legislation that's still, I don't want to say it's still being enacted, but the processes that are prescribed by this legislation are still in process. So we have sealed these records through VSP, but there are third-party entities out there, like a private company, which is what most people and businesses use to do a background search on someone. They just go and scrape data from wherever they can. And so when you go and do a background check on a prospective employee through one of these private companies, they may be disclosing to you that that person had a misdemeanor marijuana possession charge. It's not legal to disclose that, but they're still doing it. And the state needs to enact legislation to more expressly restrict that. And then we have, at the sort of the courthouse level, right? The clerks in all of the counties and cities across the state, the records are not yet sealed there. And thank you, before anyone suggests, have you talked to Code for America? First of all, yes. Second, you cannot code boxes that are on the floor. So in a lot of jurisdictions, records are not even, especially older records, are not yet electronic. So you can't seal those through coding when they're not electronic. And then we have jurisdictions that are still running computers on MS-DOS. So there's an effort underway at the state level to rectify this, to make these records electronic, to have systems in place so that all of these misdemeanor possession and misdemeanor possession with intent to distribute marijuana records can be more deeply sealed, and that will occur by 2025. It can occur sooner if they are ready sooner, but we all know how it goes, but by 2025. Johnny wants to know if we think the age to purchase medical cannabis should be 18 or 21. It should be 18 if it's a medicine. It is, like Johnny says, it's 18 in California, it's 18 here in Virginia, but also we don't have age restrictions on our medical cannabis program. It is simply the same as everything else. If you are under 18, then you have to have a parent or legal guardian. Just like if you go to the pharmacy, you're supposed to have a parent or legal guardian for prescriptions when you're under 18. And it's do other states do 21? I don't know. We do 18 here. Hey, James, I did see your comment last week, but good to know, and good for everyone else who didn't see it last week. James says, the delivery service at Rise in Salem works great. Good to know. You mean in Virginia, can we hold the administration for all the wrongdoing and putting money into the buddy system? Like, I don't know, stop electing these people is probably how we hold them accountable. You're going to hold everyone accountable this November when you vote. Don't vote for people that suck. Joel, you have great questions today. Why aren't there any medical cannabis stores in Central Virginia? Well, lawsuit. That's why. So there was, that's called Health Service Area 1, and there was a conditional permit issued, and ultimately that company entered into an acquisition agreement with another company, which fell apart, and then as part of the debt settlement, they offered the Virginia license. Ultimately, this company did nothing with that property, and Board of Pharmacy rescinded the conditional permit and opened a second request for applications. businesses submitted, their applications in round 2. And the initial conditional permit winner filed a lawsuit to stop that second round of licensing from moving forward. They did not win. And so what should be happening soon, sometime, the case has been resolved, but Board of Pharmacy, I swear every week this happens, I go back and look it up. Board of Pharmacy is supposed to notify those who submitted applications in the second round of licensing. I'm looking right now to see if they've added nothing. So Board of Pharmacy is supposed to notify those who submitted applications in the second round and then give them time to refresh their applications, because it's been many, many, many months since they were initially filed. And then it's supposed to pick back up with that second RFA and review the applications that have already been submitted once they're updated. If you ever want to follow along at home, you can simply look at the Board of Pharmacy website under their medical cannabis section, which you all will see they still refer to. Now it says pharmaceutical processor - medical cannabis. But that link I just dropped in there for you is where you would find a published notice that they've moved forward with something. So anyhow, Joel, that's why there are no dispensaries yet in Central Virginia. The good news is that I know that G-Leaf is delivering out that way. And I know that GTI, which operates as Rise, they are delivering out that way as well. So they are covering your area through delivery, which I understand is not the same as being able to go to a dispensary that is conveniently located near your home, but at least we do have delivery. Yeah, Christopher says we need better products and cheaper, but help too. So I would love to hear, if you have thoughts on what better products means, then by all means let us know. Cheaper prices have come down really a lot, substantially in Virginia, which is good news. They're consistent with East Coast prices now, and you don't have to take my word for this. You can simply use Google and look at what prices are in other East Coast states. Polly, this is great. Polly says, has the former governor made any statement about how the projected legalization date has become a catastrophe? Nope, not at all. Nor has the current governor, who made it a catastrophe. Who inspects the medical cannabis? This is licensed labs in Virginia. So of course the companies that are producing medical cannabis in Virginia have their own internal labs, but that's simply for their formulation and their own their own processing needs. But every product must go through independent third-party laboratory testing in Virginia, and we have some of the strictest testing requirements in the nation. Yeah, hey, Humble. Humble says we could really use the approval of seed and clone retail. Sure could. Seeds would have been a real easy one. Could have done seeds this year. I don't think this governor would have signed it, but it could have happened, particularly given the DEA's opinion on seeds. DEA considers seeds, whether they ultimately become cannabis plants or hemp plants. DEA considers the seeds themselves to be hemp because seeds don't contain THC. But the law in Virginia is what matters. still uses the word seeds in the definition of marijuana. Now, do people sell seeds? Absolutely. Is it legal under Virginia law? Nope. Not if you're calling them cannabis seeds or marijuana seeds. Oh, Scott, look, this is a lot to unpack, but Scott wants to know what's the actual difference between THC and these Delta 8, Delta 9, and Delta 10 products. Okay, so the quick on this, the quick down and dirty is this, Scott. THC that's present in regular marijuana, when it becomes active, once it's heated up, right, decarboxylated, it becomes Delta 9 THC. That's naturally occurring. When it's in the plant itself, it's present as an acid, THCA. You heat it up, it decarboxylates, it becomes Delta 9. Now, these products, however, right, so we're going to differentiate between the cannabinoid itself, THC, and Delta 9 THC, and products that are called Delta 9, or products that are called Delta 8, or products that are called Delta 10. These are unregulated products. That's the quickest way to say it. They're unregulated. And how do they make them? So Delta 8 is found naturally in very minute quantities in hemp and cannabis. No one is extracting Delta 8 from cannabis, full stop. That's not how it works. You would need so much plant material, it would not be economically feasible. However, when you're talking about plant material, you know we have a lot of plant material out in the United States. Hemp that was grown for CBD, and the bottom kind of fell out of the CBD market. So people are sitting around with a lot of biomass. So they were like, oh, hey, remember this like 1960s garage chemistry where you cook CBD in sulfuric acid, and that's battery acid, for 3 days? And then it turns into Delta 8 and Delta 9. Let's do that. So that's what's happening. Extracted CBD from wherever is being synthesized into Delta 8. Right? So it's not, the issue does not necessarily occur with the molecule Delta 8 itself, but rather with the process through which it's created, and then the lack of regulatory oversight. So you really, at the end of the day, first of all, have no idea what's in that product because it's not regulated. How was it made? You also have no idea. What other impurities are in there? You have no idea. Right? And slapping a QR code on it or a certificate of authenticity, that doesn't mean anything. If your product is not required by law to go through an independent review by a qualified licensed laboratory, right, then you're just making stuff up. Anyhow, same thing for all of those products out there, but with like different synthesis processes. So we have a guide on the NORML website if you want to read more about it. Yes, Tamara, that is true. Thanks, Liz. We look forward to hearing from you about a chapter in Iowa. Yeah, 21 for sure here in Virginia, Chris, for adults. It's definitely 21, and we could absolutely, and we should absolutely license consumption venues. You know, it's not like we don't already do this for alcohol, right? You're not supposed to stand out in the middle of the sidewalk and drink alcohol. You're supposed to go to a place where you're allowed to drink alcohol, like a restaurant or a bar. Right? And if you want to have a private event and sell alcohol, then you get a license for that event. It should be the same, exactly the same for cannabis. And I and the head of Virginia ABC chaired the legal and regulatory subcommittee for the cannabis legalization work group, and that's exactly what we said. But our legislature is kind of ignoring a lot of things on cannabis, but absolutely is ignoring the need to license consumption venues. Hey, Candace, good to see you. Whew, Tamara, that's a lot. Absolutely. Better products do mean full transparency. And to those certificates of authenticity, if they are not coming from an actual licensed and regulated laboratory, it means nothing. It means nothing. If your lab isn't licensed and regulated, it doesn't mean anything. From a reassurance standpoint, I mean, there's obviously numbers on a piece of paper, but how do you know that it's true? You have no legal recourse if it's not regulated. I'm just going to drop this comment up here while I read some more. And now this one. Yes, James, absolutely. Should license consumption venues, right? It would be such less of a strain on law enforcement resources if they knew that an event or a venue were licensed for cannabis consumption. They don't have to go and figure out if it's legal. All they have to do is ask to see the licensure or the permit, just like with alcohol. Yes, Tamara. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And speaking of licensing cannabis consumption venues, Tamara is so very right. So wherever you're living in the Commonwealth, heck, any state, you can do the same thing. Your city, your town, your township, your county, whatever municipality you live in, they typically prepare what's known as a legislative agenda, right? It's like a wish list of things that that municipality wants to see the legislature address in the upcoming session. And you can get your municipality, we'll just say that, you can get your municipality to include licensing cannabis consumption venues, or legalizing adult use, or decriminalizing personal possession, wherever your state or municipality is at. You can get them to include that in their legislative agenda. And it's usually a lot easier than it is to advocate for change at the state level, because it's a smaller body. It's easier to engage with members of your city council, for example. Find out who represents you, ask for a meeting, have a cup of coffee with them, show up. Don't just show up and talk about cannabis. Show up and talk to them about other things. Be engaged as a member of your community, and it makes the process a little easier. But yeah, you should absolutely be advocating for whatever policy change you want to see at the state level. Get your municipality and other big municipalities to include that in their legislative agendas. The daily, annual, weekly, yes. Beans, that is the thing. Joel wants to know how one can become a medical grower of medical cannabis. I assume you believe, or you're talking about here in Virginia. What's going to have to happen for additional licensing to occur is legislation. So there is the only licensing that can occur right now in Virginia is for Health Service Area 1, and there's already technically an open request for applications. Those applications were already received some months ago. Now, could Virginia license more medical cannabis companies? Absolutely. But in order for that to happen, there has to be legislation permitting such. The state could pass a bill to, allow licensing to occur exactly as it is now, where it's mandated that it's vertical right? And that everything happens under one license. They're not going to. More likely and more appropriate would be to move away from the mandated vertical model and allow cultivation and retail and even manufacturing to be licensed separately. The state would have to pass a bill in order for that to happen. Or the state could pass legislation that permits the Cannabis Control Authority to issue, to open licensing based on need. That's an even better approach. Is that going to happen under this administration? It's entirely unlikely. Could it? Yes. Is it going to? Listen, Virginia, y'all need to vote smart this November. Let's just get through November and then we'll see what's possible. If you all make bad choices again, things could get even worse. We could be the first state in the nation to roll back cannabis progress. We could be that embarrassing, Virginia, or we could vote smart in November and elect people who actually want to protect and respect consumers. Find out. You're welcome, Scott. Tamara, I'm going to drop your comment up here while I scroll a little bit. Joel says, are you a JD? No, I'm a JM. You can see it right there. I got jokes. You're welcome, Candace. Hey, John, good to see you. Happy 5th of May to you as well. Yes, Delaware is the 23rd state to legalize cannabis. Great question, John. John wants to know if Congress and the Senate will pass safe banking. They should. And, hey, Cassidy, can you grab the action alert for safe banking? In fact, why don't you send a message to your lawmakers in support of that effort? Is it the safe banking? Is that safe, the one that's up? I may have spoken too soon. I don't know if safe is actually up. Oh, not yet. We have two other bills up. Well, we have 3 total. No, 2 bills. The Veterans Equal Access Act. We have that action alert up, and we have an action alert up for the Medicinal Cannabis Research and Access Act for veterans. However, we will likely have an action alert for safe banking soon. Aleem, I'm not certain what you mean. How do you go about living in Virginia with medication without a license? Well, cannabis is legal for adults 21 and older in Virginia. So if you're 21 or older, you don't need a medical cannabis card. You do have to be a medical cannabis patient in Virginia if you want to shop at dispensaries. But if you just want to personally cultivate, you just have to be 21. Or if you just want to magically possess cannabis from wherever, as long as you're 21 or older and your possession is for personal use, you can do that too. I don't know, Johnny, but time does seem to go by quick on Fridays, especially when we're all hanging out together. I look up at the clock and I'm like, oh, we've been doing this for a minute. Oh, Richard, I don't think that our current operators in Virginia are necessarily going to oppose market expansion. They might not support it, but opposing it is entirely different. And I do know that Columbia Care really does support market growth. I say this because I just listened to a person from Columbia Care, specifically from Virginia, say this with their out loud voice. Joel wants to know, how do we educate those who are stigmatized and have fear of it? With gentle compassion, my friend. Gentle compassion. I think that a good place to start, can be with the content that we have on the NORML website. Yes, we have consumer transparency in Virginia, Candace. Yes, Folly. There is an effort underway in Ohio to get a citizens initiative on the ballot in November. Yes, Joel. In Virginia, medical cannabis is dispensed by a pharmacy, and your records are medical records, so they are protected by HIPAA. Thanks, Candace. That's very kind of you to say. All right, friends, this has been delightful as ever, but it's the end of the day. It's time to go home. Do some fun things with your family and friends. You're welcome, Joel. It's been good hanging out. We don't have, hey, Candace, we don't have necessarily public data sets at this point in time. We will have more public data sets once medical cannabis regulation moves under to Cannabis Control Authority. But if a patient wants the COA on any medical cannabis product, all they have to do is ask at the dispensary. You're welcome, Mike. Hey, friends, we do this almost every single week. So make sure you hit that like, follow, subscribe button so you never miss when we go live. Hey, there's a couple things I want to remind you of. And yes, Candace, to all of those things: cannabinoids, terpenes, pesticides, and heavy metals. Yes, and yes. So we have some big things coming up in June that I want to make sure you know about. First of all, let me tell you about the Cannabis World Congress and Business Exposition, or what we call the CWCBE Expo. This is June 1st through 3rd in New York City. And I'll give you a free pass to the expo floor if you want. Cassidy's going to drop that link in there. When you go to the registration link, all you have to do is put in code NORML23, and that will get you a complimentary exhibit hall pass. It'll also get you 20% off of any seminar passes. Come to CWCD Expo in New York. I'll see you there. And if you're coming May 31st, which is on the eve of the Cannabis Expo, is the NORML Formal NYC. We have, let's see, I'll probably send out an email about that next week and put it on our Facebook as well. So you can go ahead and get tickets probably starting next week at for the NORML Formal. Let me see if my good friend Mike updated. Yes, indeed he did. Fantastic. So you can find out more information about the NORML Formal. I'm going to put this in here right now. Let's see if I can. Hate typing during the show. Cassidy does all the typing because I'm afraid I'm going to break it. There you go. NORMLformal.com. That has some information about the event, and I expect he will add the link to the ticket page as well shortly. Get your tickets. Let's hang out in the Big Apple, friends. And then immediately after that, we're headed to Denver for the 2023 NORML Denver Legal Seminar. This is June 7th through 9th. It's a really fantastic event. not only for attorneys who need continuing legal education credits, but for attorneys who don't need CLEs, and really for anyone who wants to learn about cannabis law. This one in particular is focused on cannabis law. It's our first ever business specific normal legal seminar. Has experts from around the country who day in and day out are focused on cannabis law for businesses. So it's going to be a really exciting first business law seminar for us. Would love to see you all out there. We have the NORML Foundation benefit dinner at the Marijuana Mansion. You can buy tickets just to that event itself. You can check that out at norml.org/Denver. Hit the registration link. It'll take you to the ticketing page where you can select not only seminar registration, but you can also register for the benefit dinner as well. All right, friends. Everyone, have a super weekend, and I will see you back here next week. It's been such a pleasure, friends. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Well, I'll try that again. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.